So we've got a little bit of breaking news here. There's a new statement from President Trump just posted on his Truth Social platform. He says this, quote, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Pakistani officials, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and in all other respects remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or the other. President Donald J. Trump. Barak Ravid, I mean, how do you read between the lines of this? I mean, the president here clearly, we will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted. You were talking just at the top of the show about thinking we could see this resumption in hostilities any moment. Seems like the president is taking that off the table for now. What say you?
Well, first, we said, that Vice President Vance postponed his trip to Pakistan indefinitely. I think President Trump here announced that there will be a ceasefire indefinitely. He did not give any time frame for this extension of the ceasefire. And I think what we see here is what, I think we discussed, earlier in the show. President Trump wants to end the war. He did not want to resume it. He wants a diplomatic solution. He thinks that all the military objectives, as far as this is what I hear from people around him. He thinks that the military objectives have mostly been achieved, and therefore the other objectives that still need to be achieved will be better achieved through a diplomatic deal, especially when it comes to Iran's nuclear program, its enrichment program, and its enriched uranium stockpiles. And I think this is the reason that President Trump just now announced that he's extending the ceasefire indefinitely. I think this means that he wants a deal. The problem is that if you announce such a thing, you take a lot of your leverage away. And while the blockade will still continue, I'm not sure that the Iranians will now feel that there's a credible military threat. Therefore, I'm not sure it will lead to concessions.
Richard Haass, always wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What do you make of what the president has announced here? I have to say, the language alone in this post is remarkably sober by President Trump's standards.
Well, I think what happened is people look at the implications, for example, of resuming conflict to start attacking, and we don't have essentially a serious target left anymore. Plus, renewed warfare opens up the possibility of Iranian retaliation against the countries of the region. That would be a disaster. So I think the president wisely extended the ceasefire, and I think what you have now, Casey, even though you don't have formal negotiations, I think this is an interesting moment for signal passing, whether it's direct or through Pakistan or whatever. Because what you could have, for example, is the United States could signal what we would be prepared to do with standing down the blockade, what we would require of Iran, or we could send some messages about nuclear issues or what have you, or what we would want in order to get the talks restarted. So I actually think this is actually a positive development here.
One of the pieces of this message was him, the president, saying that they're going to wait for the Iranians to come back with a proposal of some sort. And Barak Ravid was on earlier reporting about splits, essentially, between the military and civilian wings of the leadership of Iran. What role do you think that's playing here?
Well, it's both ironic and it's serious. It's ironic because the United States is in no small part responsible for it. The United States and Israel, all the targeted killings of Iranian political, clerical, and military leaders created a leadership vacuum. And what you now have is all sorts of people getting their footing, competing with one another. So it doesn't come as any surprise. The other day when the Iranians sent their delegation to Islamabad, they could have filled Madison Square Garden with it. There were so many people representing so many constituencies. So I think giving them some time and putting the ball in their court, letting them propose something rather than jamming them with an American position. I think this is much better. It forces them to come to terms with one another, and we're not put in the position of putting on the table something that looks unrealistic or, from their point of view, insulting to their dignity or pride. So I actually like this. It gives everyone a little bit of time to take a breath, and it gives them some time to sort themselves out.
What do you think are the best and worst case scenarios sitting here today?
Well, the worst we already alluded to, which is that talks, for whatever reason, don't go forward, either because the Iranians can't come to agreement or we ultimately put something on that we reject out of hand. And then you have a resumption of hostilities and things escalate. And bad situations could get worse, and that would be the definition of that. A lesser bad situation would simply be the Strait stays closed. That you don't have active hostilities, but you have a closed Strait of Hormuz, which leaves everybody, Iran as well as the world, worse off economically. The best is obviously you get some kind of a deal on the Strait that allows it to reopen, and it puts a limit on Iranian control or influence. And then secondly, you deal with either the nuclear issue, to some degree. You don't have to necessarily solve it, but you deal with it, you park it in an acceptable place. I don't think it's realistic to think we're going to get a deal on other issues like Iranian support for proxy groups or Iranian ballistic missiles, what have you. My own sense is that that's too ambitious. But the two principal issues, the Strait and the nuclear issue, getting some resolution of those two on terms we could live with, I think that's the best we could hope for, and I think it's a possibility. I don't think anybody should rule it out.
As you sit here and lay that out for us very smartly, of course, it just occurs to me that the Strait of Hormuz was not on the table as an issue really before we started this war. Do you see America, if we have that best case scenario that you laid out, are we better off in the wake of this, or are we not?
No, we'll be lucky if we're not worse off, or not too much worse off. You can't be better off with the Strait of Hormuz because there was no issue there beforehand. So at best, you get back to where you were, and probably more realistically, we won't get all the way there, but maybe we can get 90% of the way there. The nuclear issue, again, it wasn't an active issue. Iran was not about to do anything new when we started this war 6 weeks ago. There's no intelligence there. The kind of deal we're going to have to negotiate is probably the sort of thing that Messrs. Witkoff and Kushner were negotiating just beforehand and rejected. So we're going to come back to the same set of issues, by the way, that the Obama administration negotiated and this administration wouldn't negotiate. Inevitably, we're gonna end up there. But are we better off or worse off, even under the best case? My sense is the only positive is Iran is for years going to be weaker, but they'll be able to regenerate their drones and ballistic missiles and the rest. The downsides, though, are many. Iran's learned some dangerous lessons about its ability to influence the region and the world by controlling the straits. American munitions stockpiles are much diminished. America's relations with its Gulf partners, with its allies in Europe and Asia, are strained to an extraordinary degree. American standing in the world is down. So overall, even under the best case, it's hard to see, shall we say, that we're better off. I just don't see it. And I think history will be probably quite critical. What again was a discretionary war, what I would call a war of choice that didn't have to be fought at this time. I think history is going to be quite tough, that the results won't justify the decision to go to war.
All right. Ambassador Richard Haass, always really appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much for coming on.
Ambassador Roger Carstens. Ambassador, good to see you again. What do you make of President Trump extending the ceasefire? It sounds indefinitely.
Jake, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it sounds like that's what he's trying to do. I think in terms of what I am interested in always, and that's bringing hostages home. I think in a way, when you extend a ceasefire like this, you lose a little bit of leverage. I think in my perfect world, we would have ended the ceasefire and at least had the threat of military force in an effort to increase leverage, which could be used not only to achieve our political military aims, but also to bring some of the 6 Americans that are held by the Iranians home to the United States.
I want to get to those Americans in a sec, but I want to also ask, the Trump administration is considering imposing a new round of sanctions targeting Iran. Would that help in getting Iran to negotiate not only for some sort of peace deal having to do with this war, but also to release these Americans?
I would say that we've sanctioned Iran with pretty much everything at any point on every single part of their economy, their political life, et cetera. I almost can't imagine another sanction really causing any pressure to the Iranian government. I think the threat of military force, however, that's a different story, and I think that's very real. But adding a few more sanctions to the stack that have already been levied on Iran, I just really can't see that adding anything.
In the midst of all this, of course, you've already noted there are Americans, two at least, that the U.S. designates as being wrongfully detained by Iran right now. The Foley Foundation says there are at least 6, as you note. The 2 that the U.S. designated as being wrongfully detained are Reza Valizadeh, he's a 49-year-old Iranian-American journalist, and Kamran Hekmati, he's a 70-year-old Jewish Iranian-American. Both have been detained in Iran for more than a year, believed to be held in a notorious prison in Tehran. Are these detained Americans part of the negotiations at all? I don't recall hearing anybody in the administration say that they are.
Jake, all we have is that story that came out in the Washington Post on the 10th of April, saying that prior to J.D. Vance heading off to Pakistan, that the Americans would be brought up as part of the negotiations. However, after the negotiations took place in Islamabad, I've heard nothing, and no one that I've known has heard anything about the Americans being a part of those negotiations. I mean, you know where my head's at. I'd encourage the administration to make this a part of their negotiated aims, and let's make an effort to try to bring them home.
To the west of Iran is Kuwait, where a Kuwaiti-American journalist is being detained. His name is Ahmed Shahab El-Din. Press freedom advocates say he was arrested after sharing videos related to the Iran war, such as this video on March 2nd of a U.S. fighter jet crashing west of Kuwait City. Could El-Din be part of negotiation talks, even though it's not related specifically to Iran?
Yeah, Jake, you remember what happened when we made a grand bargain with Russia on the 1st of August of 2024? We did what was called enlarging the problem. We expanded the amount and the, numbers of hostages held in different countries to bring together a deal that might have been inconceivable had it been just done in a bilateral channel. So there's a chance that he might be brought into this. Also, additionally, Kuwait might be able to or be willing to just make a good deal with the United States to let them know that, look, publicly we're going to have this stance, but privately we'd like to send a very clear message to the United States by releasing him back to you. So my hope is that that he gets released soon. I know that the Kuwaitis have ramped up their national security laws, and he actually came and perhaps posted a video online at a very problematic time. But clearly, he's a journalist trying to do his job, and he's an American citizen, and we need to work to bring him home.
Yeah, and Kuwait's supposedly an ally of ours.
I hope you had everything in this video. And bear it in mind that Donald Trump really wants this peace deal. Donald Trump wants peace between the Iran and the US. But because Iran really wants nuclear weapon, that is why they are rejecting it. What is your own opinion? I hope you enjoyed this video. For more news, updates like this, subscribe to my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell so that anytime I publish the next video, you will get notification. I really appreciate your time for watching my videos. God bless you.